All right, we got audio. Ready to do this?
I'm with you. I'm following you.
All right. Welcome to Catch the Vision. My name's Mike. This is John. What are we talking about today, John?
Where are we going anyway?
I think we're talking about faithful, right?
Yeah,
that's the word.
We stopped there, I think, and
Okay.
touched a little bit about that. Of course, everybody kind of knows if you're faithful, you are, and if you're not, they know you're not. You know, kind of one of those things you can't really fake.
Well, one of the things that comes to mind when I think about this is like, how do you actually get, like, I want to say, like, you know, how do you show faithfulness, but like how does this come about?
I think the word continual, a continuer, you know, someone that continues, someone that keeps on keeping on. I mean, I know the Lord does for us. He keeps on keeping on. He's faithful. He never quits on us. He doesn't, there's no variableness or shadow of turning with him. He doesn't, if he started something, he finishes it. His word doesn't return to him. Boy, he just keeps going on. I think faithfulness has something to do with keep going. You know, that's one way of looking at it. I mean, I know he's faithful. He's always, but that word always means he keeps on going. He keeps on continuing. I like to think the fact that if he started a good work, he'll continue it till he's done. He's a continuer. You know, that's the way I look faithfulness anyway.
Yeah, it's when I think about it, like kind of the root being, okay, you got faith, and faith being, I've heard some really good ways of describing this, but you know, if I were to just crudely surmise it, you have high belief in. That's kind of generally what faith is, and faithful being, okay, you have a lot of belief in this thing, and what that really means is you kind of know about the person, regardless of the situation. So the situation can bend the way that we see things, especially see like a person. But this is like, okay, well, yeah, I see that, but I know this, you know, this person and what they're like.
Yeah. Well, you know, Billy Graham, nobody questions Billy Graham. He's being faithful, keep on going till his death, really, till his end, 95 or whatever he was. But in the news today is, I think there's 4 or 5 well-known men who have fallen. Who stopped, who quit continuing.
Oh, I see.
And they not only did they fail, but, you know, they quit. Several of them quit. Not all of them wanted to, I heard. I read a couple of them. I won't mention their name, but they want to keep going, but the church said, no, you're out. So I don't know if they quit, but to continue is not necessarily not doing this, but just, you know, doing this as you're going toward the, you know, you're up and down, but you're still going, you know, you're still continuing.
So why is faithful a leadership characteristic?
Why is an aspect of leadership?
Yeah.
Well, for that reason. If you're going to be a leader, it depends on the relationship you're in, because some people, you fall, that you're no good. You're up, you're really good. You know, no good. Hey, you're up good. But leaders have to be faithful. They have to keep continuing. You know, you never quit. You never stopped. You were attacked. You were knocked down. You were fallen. You flubbed a couple times. You made a mistake, but you kept on going. You know, I think I would respect the guy that kept on going more than I would a guy that quit.
I'm just thinking about the conversation we had just before we started that, you know, when you start something, you got to do it a long time.
You got to keep at it.
You got to keep at it, because you can't, like for example, like when I started like growing food, that was over 10 years ago. And every single year we have done it. And the part that's kind of crazy about it, so, you know, ignoring all that, so what that's allowed me to do is I have like a dominant voice about this stuff. People come and ask me all the time. I think they value me almost more than I value me about these things. But
that's not a bad thing.
they realize that, again, I've noticed this, that with competence, that you're competent in something, you talk fundamentally different about a topic than other people. Whereas people, let's say they're at the same kind of lower competence level, they're going to have the same kinds of things that they'll talk about.
Competent or confident?
Competent.
Competent, yeah.
You can do, like you asked me before we came on, do you know everything about this equipment?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
He's got stuff all over the place, folks. I'm telling you.
So I know about this stuff. Yeah, I know every single piece of this equipment way too much. I mean, to some extent, I may not know like what the name of that connector is that connects that power to the top monitor there. I don't know the name of that technical connector, but I know that's a specific connector for that kind of thing.
Well, I would
so
say
I could go
that's
find
competent,
it out.
yeah.
But I mentioned the competent thing because when you do something long enough and you become competent about it, you engender faith. Clearly, I'm not going to just quit growing stuff. If anybody talks to me for like 2 seconds, they're going to find that out because through thick and thin, we're gonna rotate what we're doing. Like right now, we lost one of our main garden beds because our neighbor's moving and all this kind of stuff. Okay, we're just gonna move. We're just gonna go somewhere else. That's like, it's just not a thing, and the world's not falling apart. And this is not the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, seventh time I've had to put a new garden bed in. It's just not.
Yeah. Well, if you do it long enough too, you're confident.
Correct. Yeah, you gain confidence
as well as
yes.
competent. So
they go inner hand. Now, some people try to hack this, right? So I'd call that you're drifting a little bit out of leadership and started going to manipulation, where you say, so long as you have the highest amount of confidence, then that's gonna win the discussion, or you can win people over. That only works for so long.
Well, you've mentioned this a few times about manipulation, and that's another thing we'll get into later on the pitfalls, of leadership. But in the vacuum, I had asked this leader one time. I said, "Why are you doing this? Why are you pastor this church?" Well, because I feel like I'm supposed to, or I feel like I'm called, or I feel I got the job, and blah blah blah. And I go, but why? What's the why in your mind? Why you're here?
Yeah.
And he was trying to tell me the why. And I said, well, aren't you keeping going what's going on? I mean, the church is going on and you're in the middle of it as a leader and you're trying to keep that going. Yes. So really, you're just keeping the gears of an organization going. But what are you doing? That sometimes it's very hard for leaders to separate. Just be themselves and be a leader and be competent and confident and true and all these things we said. But instead, oh no, we can't do that. The church organization would suffer. So we do this to get people to, and that word "get people to" is a manipulation.
Oh, get people to, yeah.
To say "get people to," that's manipulation. You're
it's interesting.
doing this to maintain an order, a certain kind of thing. And I'm not against leaders that do that. I think that a lot of guys don't know any better. And I think a lot of guys are immature.
I would just say that word is like a caution word. I don't think it's necessarily bad, but you're now drifting into, you better make sure you've got their interests at heart. You're getting them what they want to get.
Not just the organization kind of thing, but yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's important. But I mean, a lot of guys don't. They're more concerned with, don't upset the apple cart.
Yeah.
Rather than sitting there and shine and take care of the apples and make them look good, we're worried about upsetting the cart.
Yeah.
And that can be dangerous.
Well, of course it can.
And it can be, you're propagating the actual order, the method, technique of a company, of a group or whatever, rather than doing what the Lord, I mean, Jesus was not trying to maintain a group.
No.
He called a group to him, and they turned the world upside down. The world as they knew it. That's great. But he wasn't manipulating them. He was changing their minds and their hearts and leading them. And it's hard to separate, because you could say, well, he did this and this, that kind of got him going this way. And you might want to say, well, I guess you could call that manipulation. But it was all for their good. It was all for the glory of God. It was, he kept on his track. And I think that's important. And a lot of guys, a lot of leaders today are maintaining an order, a method,
For
a
sure.
technique, like you might say a Roman Catholic Church, the priest is not trying to stop the church or stop the order of the service or anything like that. He's doing what he's doing. He may be a great priest. I know some fantastic priests, but they will not violate the order or cause that to stop or slow down. That's like paramount in their mind. And then I lose confidence in the person as a leader.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing this to keep this going. You're not really.
I'll say for me that this topic is catnip.
Is what?
Catnip.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's catnip is I've always posed the question, when are we going to find a CEO who's willing to destroy his own company?
That's a good question.
Never. Not in this order.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of companies that should be destroyed. They should be absolutely just cut in half. They should be obliterated. And instead, they're just doing the same and more. And the question is why? Like,
well, of course, some are
why waste your time? Who cares?
Because that's where they get their money. That's where they get their purpose or something.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, and so they say, why quit it? We might as well keep on keeping on because that's what we do. Well, okay,
Like
but
nobody questions.
The kingdom has to be a little bit different, Mike. The kingdom has to be where the leader is not committed to just a order or a method, but he's got to be committed to the leader who is Christ. End of story. I mean, yes, an order and a certain kind of thing will take place in the church. We call it the New Testament church. We're trying to make a New Testament church. Well, good luck with that. I mean, that's nice. But I've been to places where they're saying, come here, we're a New Testament church. And I go around looking around, go, you're not a New Testament. You don't even come close. But to their minds, we're trying to make this a New Testament church. And that's the thrust. That's the vision. We say, and I'm saying, that's not the vision, guys. That's not the vision. I mean, it's really hard to separate, but vision.
You're talking about, in this particular case, you're talking about like a pastor or whomever.
Yeah, I'm in a religious world. You're in a secular world, but yeah.
So you're talking about a pastor who the goal is the church, as in the body, as in, and I don't mean these figuratively. I mean literally, as in the building with the people.
And don't upset the apple cart.
Yeah.
Again, the same old saying.
Which is, of course, now the funny thing, and the reason why I sort of bring this up, I'm totally fine. Like, I like that you're coming from the perspective that you are. Part of the reason I'm sort of coming from a secular world, but not. I come from like a very solid like understanding of leadership itself, which is what we're talking about. Like,
yeah, I think you're more general in scope and
definitely more general. And why I mention that is I know for a fact that these same things apply to all cases. And so when I say these things, I'm actually looking to find the universality of all these things. Yeah. Like, and so the reason why I'll mention, for example, the CEO is even the same thing as that, because it is the same thing. The purpose of a company is not the company. The purpose of a church is not the church, as in the building,
make one or
that kind of thing. I mean, certainly I understand the figurative terms, and I'm putting those to the side, but the literal terms, which is what you're talking about. Yeah, we're trying to create a New Testament. Okay, well, who cares? Yeah. Why don't we talk about the people? What are they doing? Where are they going?
I think CEO or pastor or spiritual leader, if they're only trying to keep the method going and keep the technique going, they've got to have blinders on for the other stuff on the other sides. On the side, they're like those horses with the blinders, keep them going down the street.
Yeah,
that's well and good for a horse delivering milk the same day, same thing every day. The horse is not distracted. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
But the problem is that when I meet a leader like that who's got blinders on, I feel like you look at yourself out there. You look at your leader and he's got blinders on. He's not interested in anything else but what he's talking about, or the technique, or the method, or the what do you call them, the hierarchical thing, or whatever.
Yeah,
then you lose confidence in him. Suddenly he's a different kind of leader. He may not be all the lead, like that one movie that was called "She's Not All That." Well, he's not all that, and we have to find a guy that is really secure in who he is.
Well, I'm gonna
I
bring
want to talk about that too.
I'm gonna bring it up again because this is relevant to this point. What we're describing is actually management. Like again, this is just management. The notion of keeping, again, things and materials following a process, that's literally management.
That's management.
That's why it drives me crazy when leadership and management get merged together, because it's just not. It's a
And that's why
fundamentally
we
different
say there's
thing.
a void.
There is a void.
Because we know what a real good leader is, but when we got a manager, we can say, yeah, he's a man. He manages. I mean, I managed the Burger King of 20-some people before. I managed it, but I was no leader.
Yeah.
I just managed that
A
organization.
pastor literally doesn't need a building
He doesn't need a building.
at all.
But if they have an edifice complex where they got to have a building, and they got to maintain that building, you understand? Now a whole different thing is taking place, and he's managing
yes.
the situation.
Managing a look, a process,
Method.
how the thing goes every single week,
method,
the expectations of people.
Technique.
It is true that these things do matter, or they can matter. So, for example, managing as a leader, you might want to take on managing the expectations of people. That could be a very valid thing to do, but where that becomes the totality, where again you're talking about like a particular kind of church, a style of church, that's just you're missing the point.
Yeah,
What's the point?
I hear what you're saying. I come from it this way. I don't know what I'm talking about. That's where I come from. I come from. I met leaders that are leaders. And I met a lot of people that have met them and they want to follow them.
Yes, that's right.
And I've met guys that are managers. Nobody wants to follow them.
Yes.
And so I'm saying, what happened there? Where's the disconnect? And so we have popular, dynamic managers. Wow, that thing is. You look at I got a house in mind where the place is. I mean, you can tell when a fly lands on the roof. Everything is so manicured and so perfect.
Oh man.
It's managed, but everybody looks at it like, you're so clean, you're too clean.
Yeah.
And so we lose.
Well, that brings in certain kinds of people. Certain kinds of people are attracted to that are very stuck on surface level stuff.
Absolutely.
That definitely anybody, other people who are, let's say, functional types are going to go on that and be like, this is weird. I'm probably going to get yelled at if I make a mess. Like, I'm not interested in this.
Well, the next one we're going to talk about is servanthood.
Yeah.
Servant. And there's a difference between serving. I remember Paul Johansson said to me now it's 40 some odd years ago, that no one in their right mind rejects a servant. Somebody come to you, they might sell you a service, you can reject them. But I'm come here, I'm going to be your slave for all day, whatever you want me to do, I'll do. Even if you tell me to go away and not bug you, I have to go away. I am your servant. Yeah. Nobody goes, we don't want those people. Yes, you do. If you're smart, you go, wow. I mean, nobody does that. When's the last time somebody comes to you? So I'm going to be your slave.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm going to be your servant. But a servant leadership, a lot of people have talked about this over the years, is very different kind of leader. He's willing to not be thanked and not have his name up there in lights or even on the church sign. You know, he's willing to do that, but he's also he's leading. He's maintaining a purity and an attitude and all the other aspects we talked about leadership. He maintains that, but he maintains it toward the one that called him, not for any ulterior motive, if you want to call it that, or agenda. And I mean, how many people in politics right now are full of agendas? Give me a break. So, we're trying to do
well,
this.
hold on. I'm paused for like 2 seconds on that. The one thing about that, though, there are some politicians that have an agenda, but that's why they're elected. That they are actually a servant to that agenda.
Yeah, and I'm saying yes, true. And some will say he's a great leader because he sticks to that agenda. Well, I wouldn't go that far. I might say he's a great manager. He's committed.
For sure, I would totally agree with this.
Committed to his agenda, but a leader serves. And this is where you see the disconnect. When you start asking a leader to serve, we get people a little more reluctant. And I'll be honest with you, there are times I didn't want to serve the people I were with.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to serve them. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't want to serve them. They had a bad attitude.
Yeah.
And I really didn't like it. And a lot of them I didn't like. But when the Lord spoke to me about serving them, I had to kind of eat crow and be a leader and maintain what I was believing in, maintain what I was saying, whether I liked it or not, and whether they liked it or not. And that's a different story. That's servant leadership. That's where you begin to serve. You know, some people say, and I was just talking to my brother about the back and forth a little bit on writing, but we have a definition, a humanistic definition of things, and then we follow that. So, like the humans say out there, don't get me wrong, I'm a human too, but say that, if you're not loving, forget it. You must be always loving. You never cannot be loving. If you're going to hurt someone, you're not loving.
I'm not following that person.
On and on and on. And I'm going, wait a minute, that's your definition of loving. That's your definition of leadership. That's and humanistic definitions are very detrimental to the truth because they're humanistic. They're not
look at that. I mean,
biblical.
Here, and certainly, what does one mean by loving? Because it's such a big difference. I think we actually have talked about this before.
A little bit.
But I think about all the teachers in school that I liked. Every single one of them. I actually know. Here's a better way to describe it. I thought about not too long ago, just the general thing of who do I remember? Just in general, I talked about that with my book. Like, why do people's names stick out? So I asked the question, like, which teachers do I remember from growing up in school? And the only ones, there's maybe one or two that are exceptions to this because they had their own particular thing. The every single one of them were ball busters. Every single one of them.
We're tough.
Yes. And I liked every one of them. And I don't know if I necessarily wanted to like them.
I'm thinking back.
But
the ones that
end,
are the toughest is the ones I remember.
Every single one of them. And have a positive view of that person. Every single one of them.
Yeah. And leaders too. The leaders that weren't afraid to wield the whip.
That's why I'm not.
I think Jesus.
Dude, I'm not gonna.
It's interesting. Jesus went in the temple with whips. They say. Okay, you read the scripture, and he went with his whips and cords and emptied the temple because they were selling goods in the temple.
Yeah.
Okay, and so people were saying, yeah, he went through with the whips, but he only whacked desks and tables. Where do you read that? You can't say, if I come in with a whip, I'm hitting somebody. You understand? And so was he. I mean, it wasn't like killing. He wasn't killing, but he was getting their attention.
Yeah.
You want a piece of this whip? If you do, stay in this temple and sell stuff because I want you out of here. This is a house of prayer, not a house of selling.
Yeah.
So the whip, it talks about Jesus wielded. He had a scepter. The shepherds had their rod. Their rod was to whack sheep and to hook them, keep them from jumping off the cliff. So we got to stop the humanistic definition of leadership.
This world is way too tough to just have that kind of squishy nonsense. Just to be blunt.
We're attacking something that is very valid here, a void of leadership and a vacuum of leadership, like you called it.
Yeah.
But probably more importantly, if I were to say anybody, we're on a blog, we're trying to share this, is pay attention to the humanistic definition. Well, this church isn't very loving. Well, according to who?
Yeah.
And I went to a church, they're all about making themselves big deal. Really? They give $6 million a year, they're a big church, $6 million a year to missions. And not just to missions, send it off, who knows where, but to specific missions, helping a blind school, helping. And so, would you say that was loving or no? What's your definition? And I think definitions are very important because, especially in servant leadership, that takes some defining.
It does.
It takes some defining.
One thing I actually wanted to jump in on this. I really like this topic, servant leadership. The first time I actually came across it, there is a chain restaurant that's from North Carolina, and it used to be called Andy's Cheesesteaks, and now it's called Highway 55. So we went to Highway 55 a couple years back, and I was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna go to their website or whatever. And I'm that weird dude who goes to like, oh, about the company. And so I'll start looking at leadership and all this kind of stuff. And so when I did that, basically I found that like their entire kind of back end kind of marketing about their company is about servant leadership. And so I started reading about it. I was like, wow, this is actually really, really interesting. But that's where I kind of came into this. But what I wanted to, like, after thinking about this topic, after seeing and observing it out there, I really think the easiest way to actually see and evaluate, are you in a servant leadership situation, is just really simply, on average, which direction do the eyeballs of people go? Do they go up or do they go down? If you want to look at it like a kind of pyramid, and the base of the pyramid would be like those who are served by the organization. So if it's a business, it'd be like customers. That'd be at the base of the pyramid. And then at the top would be like the CEO or whatever. And so the question is, are the eyeballs going down or are they going up? And it's really that simple. If they go up, then you do not have a servant leadership organization. You have every regular organization. But if they go down, you have a servant leadership organization.
Yeah, and I think if a leader, if you can say, they are serving me, or if you can say, no, I am serving them, there's a definition. Because I think a true leader, servant leader, is serving. I mean, he might have to put the apron on and serve table. He might have to shine these guys' shoes, because the guy that shines them for money didn't show up. I'll do it. He puts on a thing and he shines the guy's shoes. And he's the president. He's the leader.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's a servant leader. Am I serving you or are you serving me? That's why I like this in that I can say to the people, look, pastor is a title to do some managing. I agree. And to be kind of like out in the forefront. But really, I'm serving you. I'm here to serve you. And boy, that's hard. I don't want you to think that's easy. I mean, you can tell when you follow a leader if they're a servant or not.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't go to a person and say, I think he's a wonderful servant. Anybody there long enough will go, I don't think he is. They know. They can tell. Well, does he insist on you serving him? Oh, yeah. Or does he insist on serving you? Oh, no, they don't say. So people pick up on that. It's not something that can be hidden. I'm sorry, but because we all know we went somewhere and we saw a leader who was a servant, and we went another place and we saw a leader who was not. We were serving him.
Yeah.
So I think what you're saying is very important. I think it's important for us to realize, I mean.
And this is stuff that has to be actually, in my opinion, it's got to be trained / brought out in the open / known about, because people, I really don't think this is a very natural behavior for people to do.
No.
Maybe for some it's a little bit more, but in general it's not. And so it requires creating a culture where people go and they do this kinds of stuff. Now it helps if in a situation like I'm imagining like any just kind of regular like corporate type world, you have like a manager and you got like workers or whatever. And the question is whether or not the manager is looking at what's going on with the workers and then asking them, is there anything I can do for you? Or seeing like what they're working on and going like, oh, they're about to run out of this material. Let me go get that and bring it back so that they don't have to, they're not going to be blamed for not being productive or this, that, or the other, and if they're doing that versus give me status. That's a huge one, because almost always the gimme status means I'm going to go give status to somebody above me. And it's just that, again, that's that bottom going up versus the top going down.
Yeah.
And the only way servant leadership is actually quite difficult, because to be very effective at providing, for example, like the materials for the people that are beneath you, you have to know what the hell's going on. It goes back to us talking about like, being hip and up to date and like, with it.
Update and with it, yeah.
You have to know what's going on. And that's where you got to be competent. You got to know what's going on. I've seen a lot of people.
Yeah.
There's a person I know who's not super close to me, but every time we go and see this person, they're just there's something about them that's really disconnected with other people, and they try to be very helpful, but they could never be helpful because they don't know what's going on. They don't even know what it would take to be helpful.
Yeah.
So that's
and you see that happen a lot.
yes.
And you know, I'm going to say something you won't like. Oh, who are you? Who do you think you are, John? But I want to say something. In my experience of over 50 years, and actually since 1970, I got saved. So, been all those years in some kind of ministry, big or small, busy in that way. I can say that even Paul said, if you're going to put a leader in this group over here, a brand new group, don't put a novice.
Oh.
Don't put a novice in there. Why not? Because you'll fall under because the devil will puff them up and knock them down. You got to be so you have to go through some real knockdown, drag out fights with the devil, and you got to be some. We used to call it seasoned. If you're not seasoned a little bit, you know, I mean, this brand new pastor, he's 23 years old, he's got 3 kids, he has all he can do to manage his own home, and he's got a congregation of 100 people. Seriously? I mean, that's a novice. I know you don't like that, but the truth is, in any given situation, I hate to say this, but I would rather see me in there seasoned and can work with the situation than a brand new novice who's probably going to end up being, if it gets really successful. I mean, some of the worst things that happen to the young leaders is success. That kills them more than failure. Because they're gung-ho, they're not going to fall. They're not going to fail. But they get success. Oh, we got 50 more people this year. And it goes to their head. And suddenly, down he goes. And how come? He was going so well. How come? Because he's a novice. Because he's fallen into the condemnation of the devil, which just means the devil has puffed him up to knock him down. And if you ever notice, he's always trying to make you better. You can get better if you worship me, Jesus. You can get better. I'll give you the kingdom. You can get better. You're better. You're better. And that's what killed them. That's what killed these leaders. Leaders, look at 5 in the news now, are great leaders, great churches, fantastic, great, great, great. Down they go.
So how do you become not a novice? How do you go from how do you go novice to not novice?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's the most obvious thing, right?
It's a money thing, you know. If you make me know, so really, you got to have experience. Yeah. I don't care what anybody says. There's got to be some experience, because you run into something and you don't know what to do because you've never been there before, and then you start seeking what to do. That's all well and good to a degree, but you're the leader. And so counsel is very important.
Well, my take on this is the Marine Corps borrowed from the Army this I think it's the principles of leadership, and one of them is deploy your personnel within their capabilities. And the reality of that is well, you may be a novice at this, but you're not a novice at this.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing that you're in charge of, and you really ought not try to take this on until you've moved up the ladder, so to say. And it's not really a ladder, but
I mean, that's legitimate.
From experience to experience.
Yeah, I think that's legitimate. And now a seasoned man of God is going to be through a lot of stuff. You know, I mean, I'm just the way it is. I mean, I don't know a seasoned man of God that hasn't gone through ups and downs and no money and lots of money and no people and a lot of people and no results and a lot of results. I mean, I've seen them. They've been in and out of that. So they got experience. A novice, he don't know. He's never had either one. He's just like, what do we do now? And so that's a dangerous kind of thing.
I'm starting to find that this podcast it's very triggering.
Very what?
Triggering. Because as you're saying these things, I'm just like,
well, I'm hoping.
There's so many experiences that flash before my eyes. I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, well, me too. As soon as I'm saying really, I remember a church I was in. And here's the other thing. A novice is like this. When my first church, I was Kit's brother, Mom's son, Craig's uncle. I was everything but a man of God. I was everything that they knew me humanly in a humanitarian kind of thing. But I mean, I was everybody but a man of God. And Jesus said, a prophet's not without honor except in his hometown. So I was in my hometown for 5 years, but I was never anybody. I was never nothing.
Yeah.
I'm the you're pastor. Yeah, but you're Kit's brother. You're this. You know, they would all know me as the regular guy that they knew me in school. And family's worse because family always remembers what you were.
Yeah.
They don't recognize what you become. And if I become something, family goes, well, I know him from way back. Yeah, but he moved on, okay? You just that you haven't moved on. And then, by the way, you're moving on, and I'm supposed to recognize you're moving on, but you don't recognize that I moved on. So family's a problem, too.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with this, 100%.
From novice to experience, you got to go through that stuff.
The phrase I was thinking, I've known you since you were a knee high to a grasshopper.
Yeah, you're knee high, buddy.
It just makes it like I've had experiences certainly with my own family. I'll never forget this one time when I was like 19 and my uncle he tried to pull that on me, like, oh, I remember when you were like 6 years old. And he got a reply that he was unprepared for because I'm not 6 years old anymore.
Yeah,
dude, I'm 19, 20 years old in the Marine Corps. Like,
yeah, really.
You can't say something like that and me not like absolutely destroy you.
Yeah, and then we don't, like you said, from the Army, the Marines, then we don't recognize the guy at 3 tours of duty, he can't vote. Hello? Am I missing something? 3 tours of duty, and he can't do this or he can't do that. You have to be 21. You have to. You have to be this. You have to be that. Yeah. And I'm saying, wait a minute. If this guy did 3 tours of duty, I won't even go to that place, let alone do tours of duty. I'm not going there. No, if on a debt, on a bet, or for $1 million. This guy's been through it, been there, done that, lost friends. It's time for him to take whatever reins he feels like taking. I'm not going to stand this way.
Yeah.
But we do that. We say, well, and as an organization, again, we say, well, he's never this, he's never done that, he's never done. And so we exclude him as a leader. If you think about this and say, no, he can't be in charge, he can't do this because he doesn't meet the criteria, our criteria, what we say a leader is, what we say the boss is. And suddenly the order is more important than the person. I had to learn that the hard way because I valued the order or the placement or the status or whatever more than the person's, and I lost the person.
No.
And once I lost them, what's the point?
Yeah, what is the point? Well, John Maxwell, he has this really good saying, and people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah,
it's a really good one.
It's true.
It is true. I'm glad I heard that because I needed to hear that because I'm normally more of like I know about the this or the that or the whatever, but you can't really unlock that and or that capability or skills are unlocked if there's not that solid connection of like, well, I care about the topic or whatever it is. Then that person becomes unlocked to go do whatever. Yeah. And so thinking about that, it's like, okay, and again, why this matters. I'm more of a thing person, a functional type. Yeah. And so for people, I'm actually thankful that many people can get over my stuff. It takes a little bit of time, but eventually they realize, well, no, they actually care way more than I do.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Well, you and I know a couple. We were with them the other night, and we know this couple. They're people. They like people. They want to help people. They want to serve people.
Yeah.
They can't help it.
Yeah.
They pretty much can't help it. It's just the way they are, and they know the value of that.
Yeah.
And you learn to find, if we take this back a little bit, catch the vision we got on here, and we're talking about the void of leadership. If we reel back a little bit, frankly, I think most leaders out there I feel for because it's not an easy job
it's not.
To put in a place of leadership. It's not easy. And we say we got a void of it. We do. We got a bunch of guys out there trying, managing, doing whatever, but they're lacking. And we're looking for those leaders that are all these things we were talking about. So I'm looking at a leader right now in my mind. I'm looking at a leader and I'm going, man, I wish that guy would resign and go do something else for a while. He might learn a lot more than he is going through this.
True.
And this guy was rejected. He doubled the church, and he was doing great, having a great guy to come in and speak. And the board decided to get rid of him. So they said, well, we don't like what you're doing. We don't like how you do it. And they got rid of him. And down he went, discouraged, bummed out. And a year before that, I said to one of my friends who was a friend of his, I said, if he'd have resigned and went to work for an actual organization like Samaritan's Purse or a secular business or whatever for a year or so and really picked up a whole bunch of other stuff, he would have been a lot more equipped to deal with these people. Because really what he needed to do is stand up and say, look, I'm in charge and I'm going this way. You decide if you want me before. And I've been I've been there.
Yeah.
And when I did that, those that don't want to go with me and where we're going, get up and leave. 2 people left. And the other 45 stayed. I had to do that because there was a point where I was being challenged. So, I mean, had I been in some other kind of situation, I would have probably not done it that way. But I didn't. I wasn't. This was brand new to me. And so I had the... I'm also not a guy that's given to people's opinions, so I didn't really care if he liked me or not. I was never that kind of guy.
Yeah.
But I just had to call a spade and say, look, this is where we're going. And so some guys need to learn things on the outside that they never could have learned on the inside of leadership. I'm sorry, but it's true. And when you say novice, these are the people that have been through something, some things. They got seasoned, they got experience, they've got some wherewithal and some know-how that helps them through certain things.
I wonder if this is, I somewhat don't mesh with this. I know this is all true, but I wonder if this is primarily like a people person kind of problem. Because like, you're talking about caring about what they think or not. And a lot of people, they really do care about that. That's like a big deal. You got to think all the effort that they're doing all the time is to making sure that they are valued, that they are a servant or whatever. And so if anything, they have doubts of their servant nature, right? So they have that and they're kind of over on it. Well, when the hell are you going to do stuff? That's how I think about it. When are you going to go do real things? Like, for example, before you came in, I was working on this computer program that I was writing.
Yeah, and I was fine. I was
and
fine with it.
Last time you came in last week, what was I doing? Working on the computer program.
Yeah.
On freaking Wednesday, I think I went to work at 8 or 9 o'clock. I worked all the way till like 5 or something like that. And then when I got home, guess what I did? I worked on computer stuff all the way to 10 o'clock. You think that's what you got to do in order to actually know something.
You got to get at it. That's right.
You got to do stuff. So, to your point, like getting out and going and doing like other places. Well, now you're going to be doing logistics. Now you're going to be, running the forklift team or something. And you gain this diversity of knowledge to actually give you competence and confidence so that you cannot stand up to anything that you don't have confidence in. And you can stand confident. That's
right.
One, there's two things here. I was getting ready to say something, but I've got a little bit more richer understanding. You can stand on your own competence, but that's not enough because you also have to stand on the Lord too, for sure. And you have to have that kind of faith.
Yeah.
And that's really hard to do, I'll say, unless you've got something to latch onto, because, you're going to get blown over.
I think if you remember, too, the Bible says he's not many mighty are called, not many noble. Well, that means royalty. Not many royalty are called, not many mighty are called, super strong.
Yeah.
He didn't call the Hercules in. He called these losers. I'm sorry, but he called losers.
Yeah.
Like Samson was a loser, but he had the anointing in his hair. And he was stupid to tell anybody, like, what was it, Delilah that cut it?
Yeah.
And but he had the smarts to say this, you know what? I'll let you cut my hair. I'll let you put me in handcuffs, but you can't follow me and kill me. If you agree that you won't kill me. And the reason why is he knew he would not be anointed to fight his own. He would not be anointed to fight his own brethren. He would be anointed to fight the enemy. Now, later on, she talked him into and he got in trouble. He got chained up, and he said, one more time, Lord, and his hair started to grow. And, he probably had a buzz cut, so he had a little bit of hair, just enough to pull the pillars down, kill all those people. Kind of end his life as a called person. But here's the thing I'm saying, going back to when we even started.
Yeah.
If you're not, don't walk around to somebody and say, hey, are you really called? I mean, we're not the judge or the testers for God to tell, but you have to look at the leader and say, is he called to this? Or is he just managing, or is he just this, or he just that? You have to decide, because I know by experience that you decide anyway.
Of course you do.
Sooner or later, you're going to look at it and go, yeah, I don't think I'm not going to say nothing,
Well,
but I think he's not called. And that is a determination that only you can make for yourself with this person or that person. And you have to make a decision. Right there, you got to make a decision what you're going to do. Follow or, go somewhere else. And so this is why we have all kinds of people. I just saw a couple. They're in their 5th church in 2 years. Now, nothing against them, nice people.
That's a lot.
But that's a lot. I came here and they were at this church, man. And then I heard they're over here.
Well, that goes back. I mean, that goes back to what we were talking about a minute ago. That like you can't know something unless you spent some time. You can't not like the church we go to. I'd say if you don't go for a year, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
it takes way too long.
So again, now we're back to certain aspects that we talked about, and wow, we found this guy. He really is a great whatever and. And Ginny used to always say to me, how come you never take their word for it? I just read that it's this and this, and I go, I'm too old to take anybody's word for it. I've got to see it. I'm just that point where I've got to see. And so do you, by the way, people out there. You got to see it, and you know it. You've got to see it because you've been there and you saw it, and you go, I don't like that.
Yeah. This is an interesting point because, I mean, when I think about, okay, are you on board? So you're talking about...
Are you on board?
You're really talking about, you're really speaking to a person to be, let's say, a responsible follower to some regard. That there's somebody out there that is trying to lead something, maybe trying to lead something. I would evaluate, I know for me, where are we going? And
again, that's vision.
And yeah, I'm gonna select that because if that's going somewhere I'm not going, find that out as quickly as possible because you're on the wrong train. So find out, are you on a train that's at least going in the direction? And then you want to find out whether or not you're on, the slow train or the fast train or the bumpy train or the train without tracks.
That kind of gives me a diversion because I've always said that trains have one major big problem. They got a one-track mind.
Yeah.
One-track mind.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it's difficult because you can't be a one-track mind. However, you got to stay on the track.
You got to go.
You got to keep on track. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe the Lord leads you this way or that way. Okay. But stay on track because if you get off track, you're a train wreck. And so, people follow train wrecks. Look at Jim Jones. They follow the train wreck right to nothing, So we have to be, and he was on the ball in the beginning.
Yeah, I feel like I need to maybe go read a book on that topic because I'd be very interested in where I felt like there had to have been like some shift or something.
There was a shift. It went. I can tell you from my experience, from all my reading that I've read, and you got a bunch of books in here, but I've read. I wish I could put all my books up. I read a lot. It used to be 2-3 a month. I don't do that many anymore because I'm too busy.
Yeah.
But of all I've seen and read, somewhere along the line, a leader fell because he took upon him something he should not have taken.
Oh.
If he took upon him something they should not have taken, like arrogance, like, hey, I'm all that, hey, I'm something. Or, I got a little freedom now and I got a lot of money. Why can't I do this? I know a very, very rich pastor that says, why can't I do that? It doesn't say anywhere I can't do it. Well, I know, but that doesn't mean that you can do it just because it doesn't say you can't. If you're going to be a leader, there's some kind of reason why you're taking this, and it's within the vision that you're talking about. And if it isn't, don't do it. A leader took on him something that he shouldn't have taken on. Every time I've seen a fall. David thought, well, I don't need to be out there in battle. I can hang out here. I'm the king. I'm this. Talking to himself. And so who knows? Well, I know somebody else was talking to him, the devil. And he got lax and he goes out and he sees Bathsheba and he gets in big trouble. So every leader takes upon themselves something that falls. Now, I'm not saying that's the end of them. It wasn't the end of David. David repented, et cetera, et cetera. But again, leaders that fall, and we got people, I don't know about you, who you talk with, but I'm talking to leaders like in Facebook and friends of mine, and I got hundreds and hundreds of friends that say, this leader, he fell. What do we say about that? You know, all kinds of opinions about that leader. But we've all had an experience, and we feel bad for the leader that fell or screwed up. We know that he did. He might not have been my specific leader. Oh, he fell. Oh, that's too bad. That's bad. Because once you've been seasoned, you've been around it a little bit. I feel sorry for the fallen. I don't condemn them.
Yeah.
And you know, right now is.
So I'm just imagining, though. Come on, I agree with you on all this, but I'm focused on Jim Jones here, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, at some point in time, well, I don't know this for absolute fact. Jim Jones, maybe somebody around him, but
he preached
I don't know
the gospel in the beginning. I saw his sermon.
But somebody said, put the poison in.
Well, again,
who did that? Why would you do that? Because that's at that point. Now we're going, like, you've totally jumped the rails, because there's a specific point where that happens. Well, there was a premeditation.
Yep.
That there was an activity, and then there was like an order that was done. Yeah. Then distribute the poison.
Well,
that's like madness.
It's like poison. It's like drink. You're drinking, just enjoyable, casual drink, but then the drink has you. You see, that's the trouble with possessions. I got a lot of crap in my house. You could burn it all.
Man, what a great word.
You get all these possessions, and then it possesses you.
Yeah,
big
that's right.
difference.
Yeah, that's right.
And so a leader takes on something that he shouldn't have taken on, and then it has him. And that's what I've seen.
Oh yeah, sure.
And that's what Jim Jones. He took on a couple of things he thought was that from praise or whatever, and then it had him, and now he's on the wrong track, and he went all the way to oblivion. So I think that was destruction anyway.
Yeah.
So I think the diversion, and maybe next week we can get on pitfalls of leadership.
Yeah, next week.
A lot of pitfalls. But a leader misses the boat when he takes on something he should not take on.
I think Jim Jones serving poison was probably not servant leadership.
Not a good idea. But I mean, he was possessed. He was brought to a point of possession.
Well, clearly.
He was taken for a ride later on. Not in the beginning. In the beginning, he preached the message and the gospel. He was good. And a lot of gifted guys that say talented guys, I always say that there are natural talent and there are talented guys, and then there are gifted people like Mark Spitz won 7 awards. He's a gifted guy that can swim like crazy. The gifted body, the way he sleeked through the water, they said, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Gifted. And then there's the one that excels the gifted is the anointed. Because he's a loser. Samson was a stupid jerk, lustful loser. David, many times a loser. Peter, disciple, was a loser. These guys were losers. But when they were anointed, and folks, you got to know what the anointing is. You got to know what God is saying in this person that he called, where the anointing is. Because the anointing supersedes and is greater than talent or gift every time, because it's God's anointing. I mean, Samson was bigger and greater than Hercules, the mythical Hercules. Unbelievable power. He grabbed the gates and carried them with him, went somewhere with him. Those gates were hundreds of thousands, thousands of pounds. No man can do that. It was anointing. Anointing is a different story. And so one day maybe we can get around to that. And I got a lot of things about that, but it's anointing that makes the difference. And that's from being called. You can't just take it on myself. Christians have a problem. They think they can go to God's supermarket and say, I'll take a couple of those gifts, and I'll take a prophecy, I'll take a word of knowledge here, and I'll take one of those, and I'll be an apostle, and I'll be that's not how it works. Good luck with that. You can't do that. I mean, you can try. Some have tried.
I'm thinking, knowing someone's anointing directly has to do with how you actually employ them. Yeah. Like you put them, what tasks you would give them, what areas that you would give them total ownership of, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And definitely I would say if you're not reading and understanding people on that, which you may not know until you've worked with the person long enough and you get to know the personality, temperament, and what's the nature of and one of the ways that I like to do this is I will just find if everything is just kind of, we're not doing anything, there's no pressure, what does that person gravitate to go do?
Whatever's
Like,
easiest.
yeah, whatever they go do. And like my wife, for example, she'll cook. That's like her thing. And even more abstractly than that, it would be just doing like manual tasks. That's her thing. She wants to do manual tasks.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really the thing that she's like best suited for.
Yeah.
Is like doing manual tasks. And she'll bang things out way beyond most people, like gardening work or, you know, potting trees or this or that. I've seen it many times when we're in our farm in Louisiana. I cut down like, I don't know, maybe about an acre of forest, and we're clearing out all this brush. We made all these giant brush piles. And I went and rented a wood chipper, like a 6-inch tow behind big wood chipper.
Yeah, yeah.
And we basically would park it next to each one of these piles, and we would just like we would toss it in. So we like pre-staged all this stuff ready to go so we could get as much done because we had like 20 million piles. Well, I definitely found out that day that my wife could work just as hard as me going full speed, no brakes, because she's perfectly fine to just continue to
Yeah.
and that's her thing. So
Can't beat that. I mean,
for me, I've got kind of a pressure behind me to go do it, but she's just perfectly fine to go work at that pace.
yeah. Yep. So we have to recognize that in people and in leaders. You know, somebody said, the one problem you're having with leadership with this church or that church, I would hear somebody say, you're not in your own lane. You need to get in your lane. You have a lane to go in, and you're really good at that. Stay in your lane. We've heard that said before. I agree with that.
Yeah,
I think there's a certain calling, if you will, or temperament or talent or whatever on this kind of thing, you know, and stay in it. Stay in it. Don't go away from that, because that's where you're
I guess
good.
maybe the one exception to that is when you're not in the right lane to begin with. And people, you know, I mean, sometimes is where it says like, stay in your lane. It's like, my lane is not this lane.
Yeah.
But for sure. And I mean, the reality, I mean, this kind of goes back to the point. You can't possibly know what these, it's funny you're mentioning all these anointments. If I'm not mistaken, all of those people, you almost could pretty much say they were not anointed until way further on. So during all that other time, they had to do a lot of other stuff and get a lot of other experiences before
they got seasoned.
Yeah, before they got seasoned. Yeah, I mean, you just don't know these things. I mean, some, you know, the few people who do, but even then, it's still, I mean, I don't know, life's pretty hard. Sometimes it's hard to know that it's like with me and computers, I mean, I think everybody around me always knew that I was like good with computers because I was literally working with them since I was like 6 years old. But I didn't actually have any, and I mean zero, professional experience with a computer until I was 26. So all the way up to that point, I didn't have any computer jobs, didn't have any official training, nothing. And then what I did was I got super motivated at a job, read a bunch of books on programming, and then just applied for a job and then got it. And then that's how that went.
Well, I can remember when, this is a personal thing, but it's true. I can remember I got a computer and you had to learn DOS.
Yeah.
There was no Windows.
Sure.
So I learned DOS and executables, and I got down to the base of that and learned it, and I wanted to throw my computer out. I was in a third floor office of my house, 3 floors, and I said, this is... And I would yell out, "This man-made piece of junk!" And I want to throw it out, you know.
That by the way is me every 5 seconds.
Yeah,
I still have that feeling.
Yeah,
but I can't imagine somebody who's not sort of.
I finally
enthusiastic
conquered
doing
it. I conquered it, and I come out with Windows.
Yeah.
And I went, "What? What do you mean? What? Why didn't I wait?" It was months of learning. But you know what? I got the basic understanding of what.
Well, it's funny you say that because people who are like actually work with computers, they might as well be on DOS. Like, for example, I mean, I use command line. I use command line prompts.
Yeah.
So it's funny. It's never really gone away. It's just, you know, the person who, the way people describe like the entire industry of computers is it's really a Wizard of Oz thing. There's a person who's doing something over here. There's a curtain.
There's a wizard.
And then there's a thing over here that's doing stuff. And you don't want to look behind the curtain because it doesn't look very nice. And it looks like
I wanted to look behind the curtain. I wanted to kill him.
Yes, it looks like DOS.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. That's what it still looks like. That it's just this. It's a little higher level, so it's a little easier to work with, but it's more complicated now. It's actually way more complicated.
Yeah. Well, as we go in technology, you're going to get that. It's getting crazier and crazier.
This is why I don't believe. We're sort of drifting off topic, but to get to know me a little bit more, this is why I don't believe in like the endless progression of this society in this form. And I believe that computers and the adoption of, and maybe the need to adopt ever higher levels of computers requires ever more numbers of people who can actually build and maintain the complexity. And that number is not scaling.
Well, it's not keeping up.
It's not even close.
Yeah.
And so, yes, the people who are currently doing it, they're always building higher abilities and talents and stuff, like the number of computers I'm responsible for, this or that. I mean, certainly I'm able to manage those things more now than ever before. But at the end of the day, like I went to, in my MBA, I was telling them that I believe that this area in the next, let's say 20 years to be on the safe side, will depopulate. It's a very controversial opinion because nobody believes that. How could any like rural area depopulate? Everybody's going to leave the cities and go. No, they're not. They will not, because the day that resources become too expensive, they will not be here. They will be in the cities because that is where the cheapest resources will be. And so the people who will stay here, and we're already seeing this. This is what I was kind of saying the other night. We're already seeing that in order to be here, you got to want it. You have to want it. Because you won't be here. This place will kick you out, and it'll just manifest in any million different ways.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, well, that's really the pattern. So once the resources go, it's gonna be that. And then I look around and go, there is a lot of open land here, and no one wants to do anything with it.
I know.
So I was mentioning, I was like, it's going to depopulate. And we were talking about like farming or something. I'm like, yeah, the rural areas are going to depopulate. And, everybody's like laughing at me. And then they're like, and I was like, who in the hell is actually going to farm any of this land? Like, who's going to maintain any of these rural places? and their answer, like the crowd's answer, was robots.
Yeah.
Fucking robots.
Robots.
That's so crazy because a robot is not, it's not an organic being that is like self-autonomous in the terms of, sure, it can pretend and look like it's autonomous, but it's not. It's actually a thing with a ever lower shelf life that requires an army of people to maintain, and at least one person to maintain that specific robot.
Yeah.
So then I asked a question. To me, it was so insane because I was the only person who was a computer person in the room. Well, who's going to maintain the robots? Because it ain't me. I'm not going to do it. Not interested.
Yeah.
And so the unsolved question is who's going to run all this? And no one.
I want to take a moment to say, please say something. Please make comments.
Yep.
Please tell us, you guys are talking about a bunch of baloney and you should try this. Or tell us, hey, have you tried that? You touched on this. I'm thinking that really gives us a good feel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now that we're close to the end here, I think that we need to encourage you to give us a comment or two.
Yep, I would echo the same. Definitely put comments down below, either in YouTube or on Facebook.
Whatever, yeah.
And
we got some good ones, appreciations. I appreciate the appreciation, but I like the suggestions too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're good. They're good. Tell us to get lost. That's okay.
Yeah, I would also say if there's anything that you learned that you didn't know, or maybe even some of the things that we were talking about that kind of sparked.
Yeah.
Like in you, because I definitely know many of the times that you were talking, I was just getting swirls of past experiences that were like, oh, geez.
I got to get up and go because I've got a thing I got to do.
Okay, well, there's that.
I appreciate
y'all catch the vision, and we'll see you next time.
It'll be fun.